Man, what's good, everyone? Hope everyone is having a blessed Friday evening. You know what it is. This is another episode of HBCU Fanatics. You know what it is. Thursday or Friday around 7:30. We were a little late, but had a little technical issues, but we got it together. But of course, I have my co-host with me, Coach67Sportstv, Mr. Southern. What's going on?
I am blessed and highly favored. How everyone doing this evening? How you doing this evening, bro?
I cannot complain, man. I want to know what's going on with a lot of these academic programs in HBCUs. Let's talk about it, man.
Mm-hmm.
Florida, we already knew about Florida A&M had an APR penalty, but joining them is Alabama A&M and Mississippi Valley State. So if there's any APR issues, those who don't know, you can't be involved in playoffs, which, SWAC schools, they don't go to the playoffs division, the FCS playoffs. In this case, if I'm speaking hypothetically, and I know people like Valley or A&M, but we're just speaking hypothetically, if they were to make it to the have a good enough season to qualify for the Celebration Bowl, they can't participate. Wow, what's going on, Coach? And I see everybody in the chat. Adrian Crook, what's going on, brother? Your boy Jay, salute, man. Appreciate y'all coming by. They can't spell night. it seemed like I don't know what's going on, Adrian Cook. Your boy Jay said y'all came on at a perfect time. The Lady Jags are in the softball championship up 4-0, but they called another weather delay. Oh, okay. Okay, well, shout out to the Lady Jags.
Yes,
doing
sir.
The softball game, man. Hope them ladies win, man. Them young ladies win.
Definitely salute to the family in the building, you know what I'm saying? But in terms of the APR issues, it's crazy. You got Alabama A&M, you got FAMU, you got Mississippi Valley. From my understanding, I think for football, Alabama A&M got a waiver from the NCAA for football, but basketball, I guess basketball is struggling a little bit more. Still ineligible for postseason play for basketball, but Alabama A&M football team is eligible for the SWAC championship and for the Celebration Bowl.
Okay, that I didn't know. Good.
Yeah. But even with that being said, I mean, it's crazy how they having these APR issues. I don't know what the exact issue is in regards to, I guess, just, certain teams having low GPAs, low graduation rate, whatever. Because I know back in the gap, basically under like the later years, like the very late years under P. Richardson and Stump Mitchell, Southern had some APR issues, and even with the APR issues, Dawson Nolan still won the SWAC championship. You know what I'm saying? So I think people, at Southern, they kind of underestimate how good a coaching job he did at Southern. It just was he just couldn't get over Fred McNair and Alcorn State. He couldn't get over that hump, later on down the line or whatever. But other than that, he did an excellent job. And in terms of, Mississippi Valley, Alabama A&M, FAMU, they just got to get their stuff together in regards to academics, you know what I'm saying? And not just football in particular, but just sports in general across the board. So
right,
they got their game up. They got to do better, you know what I'm saying?
So what in you being in education and administrator at a school, just and I know we're talking about HBCU college, but at the same time, in your opinion, just what would you think, in your opinion, needs to be done to clear all this up?
Well, you and I had this conversation behind the scenes the other day. I'm not gonna lie, looking at school from an educator's perspective compared to, when I was in school and later on when you was in school, like these kids nowadays compared to us coming up, man, these kids are cooked in terms of like just regular grade level school in terms of uh, at the primary school level or elementary, either or, depending on what area you live in. Then, you move up to middle school or junior high, and in high school, I ain't like these kids cook now compared to when we were in school. But just on the HBCU level, just in general, like I said, I mean, you got to get players that's students, first in terms of, the student athlete. You know what I'm saying? And I talked to, I interviewed Zacchaeus Cooper recently, and that's one thing he and I talked about in terms of, him being, a student first and an athlete second.
Great interview, by the way.
Yeah, I appreciate you on that. But in terms of him just maintaining the 3.5, and then in addition to that, I was checking out Barry Remo. His people just basically proud of him in terms of, him getting it done in the classroom. So more than anything, I think if you're an institution, I think you need more student athletes like that in terms of not only being able to excel on the gridiron or on the court or in whatever sport they participating in, but they need to excel academically. And I wouldn't even lie, I was telling this kid that got in trouble recently at my school. I'm like, yeah, this middle school, son, but I'm like, I said, I'm gonna keep it a buck. I'm gonna tell you like a coach used to tell me, like, hey, coaches don't want no dumb athletes. You know what I'm saying? So, hey, bro, you gotta get your work done, and you gotta keep your behind out of trouble. So at the end of the day, like, the institution itself needs to do a better job in terms of recruitment, and not only that, but enforcing it in terms of, holding their feet to the fire in terms of actually getting it done in the classroom and on the field and on the court. Just across the board in all sports in terms of HBCU. So, in particular, those three, Valley, FAMU, and Bama A&M, like they need to get their stuff together in terms of the APR issues.
Yeah, I agree. Come on, yeah, I agree 100%. I mean, this is third school, so they definitely need to get their stuff together. Your boy Jay said, I remember those days of Southern and APR hell. It was not fun at all. I remember in 2014, the NCAA literally pulled players off the bus minutes before the Alcorn game due to being ineligible. Man, that was crazy.
Hey, and the crazy.
And I remember that. I remember that in the news.
Yeah,
I remember that too.
Hey, it's crazy how your boy Jay bring that up, because I'm not gonna lie, is a middle school head football and head basketball coach. Literally, I done had like Dean of Stools that's in like the same position that I'm in now at my current school. I done had them pull players off the bus, not due to academics, but due to behavior. Oh no, coach, but him right here, he cutting up. He'll come out there. I mean, literally, we getting ready to go to a football game or go to a basketball game. Bro, I kid you not, I only had like 18 players. And he come to took two of my better players off the bus. I'm like, oh man. Of course, we didn't win that game. You know what I'm saying? And then
Right.
basketball game, we getting ready to go play like my biggest rival. I had to beat him in football or basketball. Man, we getting ready to leave. He sent a student out there to come get one. He should have did it himself, but what the female basketball coach did, I'm the boys coach, he the girls coach. Basically, he sent a student out there, and she told the little girl to tell him, hey, tell him we left already. And then the crazy thing about it, we could have just let him take him off the bus, because he got to start the attitude. My assistant coach was like, man, coach, bro, look, he already getting in trouble. He not really cheering on the girls. The boys getting ready to play. We pump faking and tell him he ain't gonna play. He like, man, we don't need the butter when he ain't playing. So he moping and he pouting and he this and he that. Had he played, I'm not gonna lie, we'd have beat this team I'll probably see about 10 points, but he didn't play. So we went in a triple overtime, right? So we got into the first overtime, and I kid you not, the girls on the girls team like, man, coach put him in. And I'm like, man, look, bro, I'm not listening to y'all. So I said, the only person I'm listening to is my assistant coach, who really rightfully could easily be the head coach and should be a head coach at a high school level. You know what I'm saying? I saw him online. Salute the coach. Scholarville had had their high school badge. I saw him out there jigging. You know what I'm saying? Man, shout out to coach. But anyway, he was like, look, man.
All right.
I said, man, coach, man. I said, bro, you think we ought to put it? Because even the girls' head coach was like, man, coach, y'all, please put him in. Y'all done went in the double overtime. If he'd have played, y'all have won. The girls had already won. And I'm like, man, coach, what you think? He said, man, coach, hell no, we ain't putting him in. He said, look at him. He said, everybody, like, all the girls and all the boys was on the bottom row of the bleachers, right? Cheering their teammates on. The girls on the next row cheering the boys' team on. And he's sitting on like the third, fourth row in the bleachers, sitting there moping and pouting. He's like, hell no, we don't need him to win this game. All right. He said, we ain't putting his ass in the game. I said, all right, bet. So I pull the boys. I'm like, hey, bro, y'all want him to come out them bleachers and hold y'all hand? Y'all need him to win this game? And they were like, man, coach, man, woo the woo. So I give him a little pep talk. Man, they ended up going out there and they ended up winning. They ended up winning triple overtime by 1 point. You know what I'm saying? And one of my linemen on the football team, he was starting center on the basketball team. Now, when I got there, like his 7th grade year, man, this boy wouldn't even talk. He was like a mute. Then it got to a point, this boy he had turned over such a new leaf to the point where he was so outgoing. I don't lie, they was kind of cheating. He kept getting fouled. He he told the referee, blow the goddamn whistle and call a foul. So somebody got a technical, and I kept asking the ref. I'm like, hey, who got the tech? And
you couldn't believe it was him.
The referees didn't say nothing. So I asked the boys on the team. I'm like, bro, who got the tech? Nobody wouldn't tell me nothing. And I'm like, bro, it's crazy. The referees ain't telling me nothing. The players on the team ain't telling me nothing. So after the game was over, they said, coach, starting center such and such, you get the tech. I'm like, man, why you didn't tell me that during the game? They was like, coach, we didn't want the backup center to come in because the backup center, he was more of a real basketball player. I felt they just wanted to keep him in because, he was like the starting nose guard when I lineman on the football team. He was like the best lineman we had on the football team. But basketball, I'm like, this other boy more of a basketball player than him. They're like, hell no, coach. The other boy, he got stage fright. They was like, he might be more skilled than him. But they were like, man, when the lights come on, this boy here ready to play. So they said, we didn't want the other boy to come in. I'm like, man, y'all just saying that because this Negro played on a football team with y'all. I'm like, the other boy y'all talking about, he might have been a backup center, but he hit the layup that sent y'all in overtime. What you talking about? They're like, man, coach, hell no, man, we wanted him. I said, but y'all Negroes fall for that. Y'all know I was gonna pull this behind. They said that's why we didn't tell you.
Yeah, they do you. But that story is just, you got to do what you got to do, man. And that's what these programs have to do. So those who just coming in, we already knew about Florida A&M, Alabama A&M, and Mississippi Valley State also are having APR issues and penalties. So you say who got in?
Alabama and them are waiver from the NCAA for football, but they still ineligible for postseason for basketball.
Okay, because of the APR issues. Yeah, y'all got to get it together, man. Come on, y'all. And speaking of Alabama A&M, my sister Chris M5, what's going on? She said, "Evening, fellas. Ain't nothing. We just chilling. Just chilling." Your boy Jay said, "FAMU been in APR hell since before COVID. You would think 6 years later they would get it fixed."
Yeah, I ain't gonna lie. I figured they'd turn it around, and I think it was your boy Jay Adrian Crook. One or two of them was saying that's part of the reason why of course, Jeremy Musa graduated that year, but that was part of the reason why Willie Simmons, he ended up leaving and going to Duke, and now he the head coach at FIU. They were saying that was part of the reason why he ended up leaving, because he knew that there was an APR hell too. You know what I'm saying? But that's one thing I always kept speculating on. Had Willie Simmons stayed at FAMU, would Jackson State have taken over the SWAC like they did? I honestly don't believe they would have. But he saw the academic issues they was having, and he bounced. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. He bounced just in time. EA said Coach was the name Adrian Crook. Trying to throw shots at Adrian Crook. What up, EA? Jada6 said, howdy. What's up, my brother Jada6, man? Enjoyed the live. You and Big Reg came on later, but you and 86 Ghost did, man. It was a great show. Y'all keep grinding. But yeah, man. They definitely have to get it together. Tired of seeing this in the news, actually. But shout out to HBCU Game Day for the articles. Okay, in other news, South Carolina State University is facing a major lawsuit from its own foundation involving NIL money, donor restrictions, athletic facilities, and questions about financial control behind the scenes. Could this become one of the biggest HBCU sports legal battles in recent history or memory?
Man, I'm not gonna lie. That whole situation to me,
that's crazy, ain't it?
It's crazy work, bro. You know what I'm saying? I mean, don't get me wrong. I know being from the Southern University side of things, Tony Clayton, he was talking about, hey, getting a foundation, this, that, and the third, and other schools, foundations, you have a foundation, and it's always kind of like a tug of war, or in terms of who's in control of the money, who doing what, who running what, that type of thing, or whatever the case may be. But anytime your own foundation suing the university, to me, more than anything, I think that's more than anything, control over the monies and where money is allocated, where money is going, who's doing this, who's doing that. You know what I'm saying? And I hate these kind of stories because basically, I remember I and Jay Good, man, salute to Jay Good.
Salute Jay Good.
We was having this show after Deion had left Jackson and he went to Colorado, and basically, they was talking about, it's always the stigma around HBCUs in terms of, stealing money when, you have donors and boosters, third, and, money not being allocated to proper places. And, like I and Jay Good was saying at the time, this before we had HBCU Fanatics, when it was on the Southern Baller Show. And basically what I'm saying is, at PWIs, they steal way more money. The only difference is they have a lot more money to steal. And not only that, it's not publicized the way it is when PWIs do it, because there were multiple instances where there was some kind of scandal at McNeese State. There was a scandal at Southeastern. There was a scandal at LSU in terms of money being misallocated. People sticking their hands in money, stealing money, this, that, and the third. But of course, the local news stations here, they really don't push the line and really publicize it the way they do when it's Southern or it's another HBCU. So anytime it's an HBCU, they really trying to, really publicize it, push the line with it, whatever the case may be. But when it's a PWI, they don't give it the same kind of smoke. You know what I'm saying? So at the end of the day, I can't stand a double standard when it comes to, putting HBCU business out there, making them look like, hey, all these HBCUs, they steal money. You got a bunch of crooks running these organizations, this, that, and the third. No, don't get me wrong. I'm going to keep it a buck. I know somebody like myself individually, and there was a point. For the most part, my parents paid my way pretty much the whole way through Southern, except for maybe a couple semesters. Now I know one semester I got a refund check like that fall. I turned around, I was looking for the refund check that spring, and evidently I didn't go get it because I didn't know I was gonna have a spring check too. I just was assuming, hey, that $500 some dollars I got for that fall, that was it. But I got the same $500 some dollars that spring. And my mom was like, boy, you better go get that money. And of course, by the time I went to go get it, that money was gone. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Stuff like that happened, but stuff like that happened at PWIs as well as HBCUs. But they only broadcast it when it's done, in HBCU. But like I said, I think that situation between South Carolina State and his own foundation, I think that situation is going to get pretty messy, in my personal opinion.
Yeah, so the name of the foundation is South Carolina State Foundation. That's their the foundation, the internal foundation that was assisting with the NIL deals and everything, the end zone plans, as they call it. So let's say just hypothetically, if South Carolina State Foundation wins the lawsuit, what is that, in your opinion? What does that say about what does that mean for South Carolina State?
Well, like I said, I think at the end of the day, I think it's an internal struggle on who's going to control the money. Maybe this particular group won't control money. Somebody else won't control the money. And then in addition to that, I think more than anything, it's a power struggle in terms of, where money is going to be allocated. Or it should go here, it should go there. To me, I think that's it more than anything in terms of an internal struggle. And then in addition to that, it could be potential like misappropriation of funds and, money not going where it's supposed to be. But really, that's the gist of it at the end of the day.
And you know what? And your boy Jay, you hit the nail right on the head. That's why this irritates me. He said our own people are scared to donate now because of stuff like this. Exactly. And then what's so sad is, like, for example, the APR issues, like going back to that, in the PWI schools, not saying that there aren't penalties that are dished out for the PWIs, but they have so much money moving around, they can hide I'm gonna go ahead and say it, but all my football people know what I'm talking about. They can hide their athletic dummies like they've been doing for years. You know what I mean? Maybe sack on. That's why a lot of sanctions and even the famous SMU death penalty happened. But that's another story. But my point is, HBCUs don't have, like we discussed in the past, Coach, HBCUs don't have the funds or the privilege to hide their flaws and everything. But there's no excuse. If there's a misappropriation of funds, then they need to be called out.
Yeah,
and then
go ahead. I don't mean to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
Like I was saying, it also, like I say, I can't stand that stigma, because I think that's part of the reason why, Jay Good and I was having this conversation behind the scenes. He was saying, even in terms of like Southern University, Southern University had their Jagathon, some months back or whatever, like maybe a couple months ago, whatever. And basically he was saying, like, all of these people that's talking about Coach Falk this, Coach Falk that, how many of those individuals are donating? And I think the fact that when you have stigmas like this attached to it ain't just Southern, it's just HBCUs in general. You know what I'm saying? That people steal their money and all the money. And I'm like, look, bro, like, support your HBCU. You just can't assume that, hey, funds are going to be misappropriated. You know what I'm saying? You just can't assume that. And like I said, PWIs, they have way more money at their disposal, like you say, to move around, and they stealing money. They're stealing more money at these PWIs, but they just have more of it to steal. So it really could go unnoticed, especially like LSU, just using that example, since it's the closest example to Southern University, you know what I'm saying? And then on the flip side of it, that's why I hate these kind of stories when it does come to light that funds are being misappropriated at certain HBCUs. It kind of lends some credence to your boy G's point in terms of that's why people don't. Yeah, that's why I don't want to lend them, because They be stealing money, woo the woo. And I'm like, bro, that's just an excuse, you know what I'm saying? And even when you're talking about the athletic component of it, where, you got players that might not be going to class or doing this or doing that. Crook said this, when did the situation with Jalen Woods when he missed the team bus to the SWAC MEAC challenge. Basically Crook was like, oh man, that'd have been Coach Richardson. He pretty much would have kicked him off the team, point blank, bottom line.
Yeah.
And the thing about it is, even if you watch the movie, the program, hey, you got guys all the time at PWIs, Power 4 PWIs, who not going to class on a consistent basis. And then in addition to that, they got other people taking their test for them. And when they do get degrees, it be stuff like swimming pool management, like the most ridiculous things. So at the end of the day, don't get me wrong, you got players that go to PWIs and that go to NFL and this, that, and the third, and they get legitimate, they actually get their schoolwork done, and they get like degrees in real good, reputable fields. But at the same time, you got a lot of guys that getting, like I said, it was the infamous thing on the movie, the program, where he was messing with the head coach's daughter, but he was getting a degree in swimming pool management. You know what I'm saying? So at the end of the day, like, bro, this type of stuff happens every day. So they talk about it. Like HBCUs, having APR issues, guys not going to class or with the woo. But at the same token, on the flip side, man, you got the same thing going on in PWIs. And guess what? Hey, I knew guys that transferred to Southern, or even guys that stayed at LSU that went to like local schools or whatever. They're like, man, look, bro, such and such that we played ball with in high school, or we played against such and such in high school, man, that boy don't ever go to class at this PWI, that PWI. So at the end of the day, it doesn't just happen at just HBCUs. It happens at PWIs at a much higher rate. But like you said, they probably got somebody else on. I mean, I know from a coaching standpoint, I done had guys on the team, when I have a bigger team that, hey, this guy might not be as good, but he has a pretty high GPA and he stays out of trouble and he helps the image of the team. But the same thing on college teams where you got this guy here, he might not, be a real good player, but, he average, he decent player. But from an academic standpoint, he keep the team GPA high, you know what I'm saying? So the same thing happens at all institutions. At the end of the day, don't let people fool you, making it sound like these are issues relegated strictly for HBCUs. No, PWIs have these same issues and they have it at a higher rate, but it's just covered up more because when it comes to reporting these type of things, you have the huge double standard when it comes to that.
Yeah, keeping it up, fam said the reason why they don't donate is because of leadership. People know already that they're no good, and until the mentality switches, this will continue to be a trend.
I mean, I understand what he's saying, but even with that being said, we cannot let that be an excuse for. I mean, this issue we talking about, it doesn't just hold water at one particular HBCU. You could pick a HBCU name out of hat, and that stigma is attached. But like I said, on the flip side, PWIs, man, hey, like I said, there were scandals at PWIs here in the state of Louisiana that the local news didn't even really. They might mention it in passing at best, but they definitely didn't go in depth and go in detail in terms of reporting it like they did. Like, for example, when Southern University had the degree scandal where people were paying like $1,500, even though they might not have had all the courses or credits they needed to graduate from Southern. I wouldn't even lie, WAFB and WBLZ, they made a huge deal about that. But like I say, when the PWIs like Southeastern and McNeese and La Tech and LSU, when they had these scandals, they really didn't push the line on that. They really didn't report on it like that. So at the end of the day, it's a double standard. So like I said, we can't let that deter us from, donating to HBCUs in general, especially the HBCU we graduated from. So I understand what he's saying, but I think at a certain point, it becomes the excuse not to support our own HBCUs, which we need to, because there's no way an institution like Morris Brown should have had to close its doors, even though it's reopened now. It shouldn't have to close its doors due to lack of funding, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I agree, because look at Ohio State. with the scandal what they're going through right now.
And it ain't just Ohio State.
With Richard Strauss, the dude that was sexually abusing athletes for years. If that would have been if that would have been the HBCU.
Oh man, you would have never heard the end of it. I mean, even
but Ohio State fan base, and they I mean, that's the Buckeyes. You know what I mean? That's that's they come they're bringing in millions, billions of dollars to, even with that that black cloud over their school regarding that situation. They're still functioning. People still are supporting. So like you said, that's not. Yeah, go ahead.
Not only that, you don't hear it mentioned in the news like it would have been. It would have been an HBCU. Even if we go back to like the Jared011Green scandal back in the Gap, it was
Penn State. Yeah,
it was a thing at Penn State. But just imagine if the legendary Eddie Robinson had a coach on his staff like that, and he turned a blind eye to it.
Oh Lord!
More publicity, that situation with a guy. So at the end of the day, it's a double standard when it comes to PWI.
Rest in peace, Eddie Robinson. But they would have told they would have told his black ass pieces.
Oh, big facts. And I mean, really, like I said, I really think, sometimes people, even in their older age, they need something to keep them going. I think football was the only thing that really kind of kept Joe Paterno going. And once that was no longer at his disposal for him turning a blind eye to the Sandusky situation, really, and then once they was tearing him up in the media, really, I kind of think that's really what killed him, if you ask me, truthfully speaking, because, he was older.
Yeah, point to that.
He was older. He was in good health. But once he was no longer coaching Penn State, and once they was tearing him up in the media, like, he died not too long after that, but like maybe 6 months later max.
And then then there was proof that people on the staff came to him multiple times about that situation.
Oh no,
you know what I mean? And then he still, turned a blind eye to it. You know what I mean?
And I mean, this is the crazy thing about it. Even though, it was underage kids, that made it real disgusting. That really kind of would tarnish Coach Paterno's legacy. But let's be honest, though. If that wouldn't have been underage kids, that would have been adults. I promise you, just like we talk about on the Southern Baller Show and just across our LDBC platforms, the ridiculous growth of the standard. When you look at like Diddy and Vince McMahon, or you look at Hugh Hefner and Diddy, it's a ridiculous amount of scandals. Like, we talked about the Klitschko scandal in terms of Vitaly Klitschko, in terms of him being a modern day Pushkin from The Equalizer, you know what I'm saying? Or Garth Brooks. There's so many celebrities who had scandals, and white people really just kind of ignored it and turned a blind eye to it and brushed it under the rug. But when it's somebody like Diddy or R. Kelly, anybody black, it's like 7-8 says all the time, salute to our brother 7-8 Sports TV. America needs a black villain at all times. So that's why you can have, somebody like a Josh Giddey, and everybody know this boy guilty. And this boy sins are forgiven, and everybody just turning a blind eye to it. His Oklahoma City Thunder coaches covered it up. Sam Preston knew, all the coaches knew, the staff knew, the whole NBA knew, everybody ESPN knew. They just ignored it. They traded him to the Bulls like a thief in the night, like nothing happened. You know what I'm saying? And then guess what? And, Malika Andrews, big wench that she is, Buck Dancing, Bootlick and Sambo, Stephen A. Smith, they don't have nothing to say. The same episode of First Takes, allegedly, Von Miller pregnant girlfriend and him had a domestic dispute. Now they acting like there's no proof that he did it. It's just an allegation. They talking like he's guilty, but we know Josh Giddey did it, and we just ignoring it. So at the end of the day, bro, I can't stand the ridiculous double standard. I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna keep it a buck. That's part of the reason why I really don't F with ESPN. Really, if it wouldn't be for watching certain HBCU games. That's why I wish like HBCU game day and HBCU Go really kind of step their game up. So we really wouldn't need ESPN, period. That's why I say, man, F ESPN, you know what I'm saying? And just mainstream media, old media in general, for pushing these narratives and these double standards when it comes to HBCUs and PWIs and just black people in general, black and white, you know what I'm saying? I can't stand the media in this country we live in because it's just a ridiculous double standard,
Yeah, I agree, man. Your boy Jay said Michigan is in the scandal every year, and people just gloss over it. Yeah, people ain't gonna have the same venom. Israel 1906 said, "What's up, brother?" He said, "May Arn gone somewhere." I don't know what you mean, Israel. I know you're trying to say something. Break that down for me. Keeping it up, fam. Said they then responded with a plan of action that will yield a better result. For instance, why are HBCUs not doing group economic efforts together that will put HBCUs in the FBS? Why? It's leadership.
Well, truthfully speaking, in terms of the FBS component, I don't think they really need to go FBS, but I agree in terms of group economics, you know what I'm saying? And realistically, I mean, just black people just in general practicing group economics. I mean, Dr. Claude Anderson, he talked about how, there's this old stigma about the white man's ice being colder. And I'm not gonna lie, I've known black people, like literally in real life, real time. There's a black owned business. I don't like the way they do this and do it. I'm like, man, they have an excellent business. Like, why don't you support black owned businesses? But they'll turn around and they'll go literally to the white business right across the street. Not figuratively speaking on, literally. And guess what? After a certain time frame, the black business closed because guess what? Black people not supporting black businesses. And essentially, as soon as a black dollar hits a black person's hand, it leaves the black community. Whereas, if you look at other, groups, if we talking about, how I'm gonna say this, the pointed hat people, if we talking about people of different races, different European people, we talking about Italians, I mean, just think about it. You got little Italy just about every city. You got little China in just about every major city. So at the end of the day, these different races and groups of people, they practice group economics, and there's a certain degree of unity in their community. Whereas in our community, I feel like we really don't stick together. That's why I really kind of push the line in terms of, brothers supporting one another and practicing group economics and just black unity and black togetherness just in general as a whole, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but okay, I get it, Israel. And read at it. He's mad. Okay, now I will say this, because black folk know how to articulate what's going on and why we ain't supporting each other. And then when there's programs for us to collectively, group economically efforts to come together, y'all don't support it. We know what the issue is. Anyway, go ahead, Coach.
We got to practice group economics. We got to pull our resources, our talents, our labor together. And I mean, that's the only way we really could, rise as a people in this country is by having unity. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's the thing about it. Any other groups could stick together, whether it's Mexicans, whether it's Hispanics in general, whether it's Italians, Asians, China. Like I said, little Italy in every major city, little China. These groups of people stick together, but when black people stick together, it's problematic.
Mm-hmm.
Pro, divide and conquer type tactics. You know what I'm saying? So at the end of the day, it's imperative that HBCUs stick together. I mean, don't get me wrong. I know when it comes up, like actually on the field, we got the whole SWAC represented. Teams all across the SWAC. We got JSU, we got FAMU, we got Alabama A&M, we got Southern, we got all these teams represented here. And like I said, at the end of the day, I mean, don't get me wrong, when we play head to head, we won't win. But at the same token, we want all our HBCUs to thrive and do well and stick together. Because especially, we just gonna say JSU. We know Southern and Jackson State are huge rivals. But guess what?
Right.
When Jackson State go up against the PWI, guess what? We should all
All
win.
Jackson State, baby. Yeah.
You know,
we Tiger fans that game. Yes, sir.
Big facts. You know what I'm saying? So at the end of the day, like, you know, HBCUs and Black people channel, we got to stick together. You know.
Yes, sir. And keeping it up. Say it sucks that Black people refuse to work together and lie in the process. We can do anything through group economics and great decision making. Ed Reed is a great decision as a head coach. The same.
Nah, I ain't gonna lie. I think Israel Kerry to a certain degree has a point. Keep it up, fan. I really rock with him, but the whole Ed Reed thing, bro, I'm gonna keep it a buck. I know he gonna vehemently disagree on that. You, I, and Jay Good, we done had this episode on the Southern Baller Show in terms of dudes, and even we had episodes of Southern Baller Show and HBCU Fanatics talking about this in terms of the whole Ed Reed thing, bro. I'm gonna
and I was an oddball out. I disagree. I thought even with Ed Reed's poor choice of words, I still thought, you know, but you explained to me why you thought you and Jay Good thought the way you thought.
I mean, I know you and Big Joe.
Big Joe, yeah.
You and Big Joe on the side of, yeah, the brother should get another shot. Jay Good and I, we on the side of, look, as a head coach, you not only represent your football program, but you represent the institution. And yeah, there were issues that were at Bethune-Cookman. Jay Good and I never said, hey, we condoning the issues that Bethune-Cookman had in the way they handled it. But bro, if you're gonna put the athletic department and the program on blast like that, I mean, guess what? P. Richardson constantly had issues with Southern in terms of poor facilities and this, that, and the third, the weight room this, the locker room that. He always, but there was a certain way he articulated when he got in public, and he didn't make it look like he was urinating, defecating on the entire school and the athletic program at the same time. And Ed Reed just did, I don't care what nobody said, he had a poor choice of words. The way he handled the Bethune-Cookman situation, I'm going to keep it a buck. I don't see him ever. I said this then, the first time you and Jay Good, I had the episode of the Southern Baller Show. I mean, I'm not going to lie, you got to go back probably a few years to catch that episode. But I said that then, and I'm saying it now. More than likely, he'll never get another head coaching job in the HBCU realm. And like I said, a lot of people like, well, hey, you know, and basically Big Joe, his stance was like, yeah, look how Bethune-Cookman fell off. Woo. Yeah, that's cool. But guess what? I bet you know PWI ain't gonna give him a shot either. So if anything, he was gonna get a shot at Bethune-Cookman or even at another HBCU had he not, you know, saw the bed so bad in terms of the way he handled it from a PR standpoint. I think had he, even if they would have parted ways with him because they just had a handshake agreement, they didn't actually have anything in writing. Had he not mishandled the situation so badly, I really think he could have went on to maybe like a Texas Southern and got that job because they was pushing for him to get that job at one point. And then it came out of Fred McNair, you know, getting a job, and they balked and they ended up going in a different direction. You know, him potentially being talked about at Grambling. And not just those HBCUs, but a few other HBCU, like actually threw his name in the hat in terms of potentially being a head coach. But, you know, the way he handled that Bethune-Cookman situation, I don't think he'll ever get another head coaching job in the HBCU realm. And if he mishandled that HBCU head coaching opportunity the way he did, PWIs ain't gonna touch him with a 10-foot pole. So at the end of the day, Bethune-Cookman really was this shot. Now, don't get me wrong. Like I said, I don't like the way the institution handled the situation in terms of the facilities. But like I said, that's not the first HBCU to have facility issues, whether we're talking about Southern or whether we're talking about Grambling, whoever the case may be. So, yeah, so I know he's a huge proponent of Ed Reed, but in my humble opinion, I don't think Ed Reed will ever get another head coaching opportunity on the HBCU level. And I know Keep It Up fam say, hey, D2 HBCU shouldn't dare try him. If anything, guess what? That might be where he actually get a shot. You know what I'm saying? At one of them D2 HBCUs. You know what I'm saying? So at the end of the day, I mean, it is what it is. We always gonna have opposing points of view on that, but he had his opportunity, and the way he handled it in terms of a PR standpoint, you can't be that boisterous and be that outspoken. I mean, you can voice your frustrations in public, but there's a way to go about it, and he mishandled it completely.
Okay, and Keep It Up fam said, and I'm reading these comments. Make sure y'all hit the like button, share, subscribe, please. But Keep It Up fam said you just disagreed with Marshall Faulk hire, and yet the booster made the great decision that is seeing results for Southern. The students and the student athletes are behind Ed Reed as a head coach. That's all that matters. They're smart, and they wouldn't protest to keep a liability. He'll get his opportunity when he does. The university will benefit. The question is, who will hire Ed Reed first?
I just answered that question. I don't see an HBCU hiring, and I mean, I think if a D2 D2 HBCU step turn, I mean, I don't know if he would be too prideful to accept it, but I think any opportunity that comes his way at this point, he needs to humble himself and be willing to accept it. But at the end of the day, I don't think he would do it. Now, in terms of the Marshall Faulk, yeah, I mean, I didn't hide nothing on my channel. You go to my channel, like every live stream, every short, every video, it's still there. Yeah, I wasn't initially sold on it until, my coaching friend was like, hey, bro, I think this would be a great opportunity for Southern to do that. And, Keep It Up fam, he wanted, the members that support the channel or whatever the case may be, but you can go look on my channel. Initially, I wasn't a proponent of it. And, people was telling me behind the scenes that he could potentially be the next head coach. And then my coaching friend sold me on it. So you go watch the 90 playing video saying, hey, he was like, hey, if I was to bring in Coach Falk, this will be my 90-day plan for that. So that's why I ended up doing the 30-minute long 90-day plan video. And eventually Southern ended up hiring me. So at the end of the day, yeah, I wasn't initially a proponent of it. I was more of a, hey, we need to go in the direction of hiring a Kenneth Berry or, somebody of that ilk. Yeah, that was my initial stance. But thus far, things are going in a great direction for Southern. People talking about Southern, somebody I talked to yesterday behind the scenes saying, hey, he thinks Southern could compete for a SWAC championship year one. I'm going to be honest with you. I think that's extremely optimistic. I mean, I hope they do, but I really don't see it. Even though, I'm going to talk about it on my upcoming live stream. At the end of the day, we'll see how things play out. But yeah, that might be a little bit unrealistic, though, in terms of compete for SWAC championship year one,
My bad, Israel. He want us to talk about this. He was like, let it be done, bro. Your boy Jay said, I love how Coach Fox came in and saw our issues and told our administrators to fix it, and they fixed it. Having a big name goes a long way when you aren't acting crazy like Ed Reed. EA said, very important lesson to learn. Everybody can't go, sis. Sis Tubman knew that early that, and also a reason why she carried her pistol. Some black folks rather talk, look, than progress and move up. Yeah. We compete for a SWAC champion year one after that 2-10 season. Bill Coach Falk and static. Yeah, y'all after that debacle season y'all had last year, and if y'all are competing for a SWAC championship, yeah, I would say so. But let's move on, man. The Circle City Classic is reportedly leaving Indianapolis after shockingly low attendance attendance inside a NFL stadium. What went wrong with one of the most historic HBCU football classics? And what does this mean for HBCU classes moving forward? And Coach, I have a additional question after this, right? So, I saw a message that was interesting. This lady under Twitter was basically, or the X was saying basically she knew it was going to be canceled because black folk. And basically, she would say you got to know your fan base. And, the SWAC is all all the schools in the South. So fans, especially with the economy, ain't got the money to fly out to Indianapolis every year. So you think that could be a component, or there's more to that?
Well, I'm not gonna lie. I'm gonna be honest with you. It kind of hurt my heart to see extremely low attendance. Only 3,000 in the NFL stadium last year in the Circle City Classic. And I'm not gonna lie, it's somebody that's like a diehard HBCU fan. The Circle City Classic and the Magic City Classic, outside of Bayou Classic, is kind of like the classics that really kind of I used to like to enjoy to watch because I remember back in the Gap, it being on BET and Senior, may rest in peace. He and I sitting down watching the game. This, that, and the third. I remember one year, I think if I'm not mistaken, I think Grambling and FAMU played, and Ezra James was at the game, and he really, he wanted to see an exciting game. But Doug Williams was the head coach at Grambling at the time. Both of them had high flying offenses, but Doug decided, hey, we're gonna play good defense and we're gonna pound the rock, and it ended up just being a slug it out, not a slug it out game that we thought. We thought it was gonna be a gunfight. I thought it was gonna be a gunfight, but no, they just pretty much grounded, pounded, and they played good defense, and they ended up smashing FAMU that particular game. But at the end of the day, overall, I think Indianapolis from a locale standpoint might not be ideal. Truthfully speaking, I think that's one component of it. And then not only that, we talked about, you and I on this show, we talked about how, basically FAMU head coach Quinn Gray, was saying not only like the Circle City Classic or the Magic City Classic or the Bayou Classic or the State Fair Classic or whatever classic it is, like basically all, just like we was talking about group economics and HBCU supporting one another, like we need to support all major HBCU events. But I think location is one component of it. And then not only that, I'm going to keep it a buck. I think pretty much if you have any big time classic, you got to have HBCUs that really going to come out and support. I think that was one of the things that allowed the Heritage Bowl to fall by the wayside, in its initial stages. Really, the modern day Celebration Bowl is the old Heritage Bowl. The only difference is you got more media attention, more money attached to it, more publicity, more notoriety attached to the Celebration Bowl. But that what ended up being the downfall of the Celebration Bowl. It was like if you didn't have a team like a Southern, like a Grambling, like a South Carolina State, I'm talking about a team that has like a huge fan base, a huge following, and they're going to come out in droves to support, then I'm not going to lie, you're going to be hard-pressed to get, these classics and these bowls to really kind of stand on their own. So at the end of the day, I think if you got like a Circuit City Classic, a Magic City Classic, I'm going to keep it a buck. You're going to, hey, people might say I'm wrong. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think at the end of the day, all HBCUs should support one another. Like we talked about earlier, we should practice group economics. And like Coach Quinn Gray said, especially the Celebration Bowl at the end of the season, I don't care, if you're a Jackson State fan, if you're a Southern fan, if you're a PV fan, if you're a North Carolina Central fan, if you're a South Carolina State fan, whatever, all of us should go and support the Celebration Bowl and support all HBCUs. And that's kind of really going to be my call out this coming season. But I think at the end of the day, if you're just having a classic that's early in the season that's getting ready to start out the year, I'm going to just keep it a buck. You're going to invite a Jackson State. You're going to want to invite a Southern, a South Carolina State. You're going to invite a team that's going to come with a fan base and a following. And if you put two of them teams together, it's going to become a bigger event. And I think more than anything, I think you need to, I think they really need to rebrand. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think the location, maybe if you had it in Chicago instead of Indianapolis, or maybe, I think Atlanta is kind of the kind of go-to place. But
yes, because it's in the South, so everybody can.
Yeah, but even with that being said, I think that's a valid point. But I think we don't want water Atlanta down, because you're already gonna have Atlanta for the celebration board at the end of the season.
That's true. That's true.
You're gonna have the more than likely SWAC MEAC challenge at the beginning of the season. So maybe you could change up another locale, like maybe a Dallas, maybe a Houston, maybe of course you're already gonna have a Southern and Alabama State and Alabama Legion Field. But I'm gonna be honest with you, I think a Southern locale, or even, I'm not gonna lie, depends on certain places. You already got the Las Vegas Classic out there. Maybe, you might want to go out to the West Coast. Maybe you want to go to Cali, like maybe, a LA venue, whatever. Or maybe since it's early in the season, maybe you might want to consider a New York venue. But you want to go to a big city, and you want to go invite two teams that's gonna bring a fan base. So if I'm organizers of these type of events, like I said, I'm gonna keep it a buck. You probably you really can't necessarily do maybe Southern and Jackson State. I think that's really kind of one of the biggest rivalries in HBCU football right now. But I'll take a huge MEAC team and I'll take a huge SWAC team. Don't get me wrong, two of them gonna already go head to head in the SWAC MEAC challenge already. But I think you want two HBCUs that have a huge following, and you want to put them in a big city, and you want have two fan bases that's gonna go at it. You maybe could develop a little rivalry, or already have a built-in rivalry, and two fan bases that gonna come out and support their respective universities. So maybe if you want to consider, if you move from Indianapolis, you want to keep it in the Midwest, maybe try Chicago, maybe take it out to the West Coast, maybe take it to New York, LA. Miami is a hot spot right now. Maybe try Miami. But either way, if I'm the organizer of the Circuit City Classic, that would be my approach to trying to bring, that event back to prominence. And not only that, but you won't get one of these HBCU platforms to really, I think the thing that really kind of helped them back in the gap was, BET really was big in terms of that particular event. Now you won't be certain you could get an HBCU Gold. You could get even though I really don't F with them, ESPN, HBCU Game Day, whoever, you know what I'm saying? You won't get
whoever, somebody, yeah.
You won't get this outlet to showcase your event, but not only that, try to push your event also, you know what I'm saying? But if I was the organizer for the event, that would be my approach. What do you think, bro?
No, I agree 100%. I really ain't got no feedback. I agree with everything that you said. I just what that lady said in X or formerly known as Twitter said that especially after the pandemic and then this economy, you got to know your fan base. In Indianapolis, having less than 3,000 or 3,000 in a football or NFL stadium, that's pretty bad. So just keep it simple, and I'll say pick a location along the Bible Belt where people can get to it.
Well, at the end of the day, like I said, you definitely want two teams that gonna come out and really support their institution. So I think that's really what you do. You know what I'm saying? That's how you. I think that's probably the biggest thing you could do. Because I'm gonna be honest with you, certain teams gonna come out and rep their school. You know what I'm saying? Jackson State, Southern, whoever. You know what I'm saying? Alabama A&M. Certain schools gonna support. Certain SWAC schools got a bigger following. Certain MEAC schools got a bigger following. I think you take the SWAC MEAC rivalry, and I'm not just talking about in terms of SWAC MEAC challenge. I'm talking about just if you got a classic that need, two teams, pick teams, one team from the SWAC, one team from the MEAC, both of them that got a huge following, both of them that gonna come and support. Maybe you could put together maybe like Alabama A&M
And that's what
South
saying
Carolina.
they were, and that's what they saying. And I don't mean to interrupt you. That's what somebody was saying in the chat. The two teams that they're picking for the classic is not helping either. Like you was
Oh,
as you were saying, they got to be heavy fan bases. Go ahead.
oh, I mean, you gotta pick two blue blood type teams, two heavy hitters. They're gonna come out and support one, and then in addition to that, venue. You know what I'm saying? I mean, maybe you could try moving from Indianapolis to Chicago. Maybe you could try Miami. Maybe you could try LA, New York. But you want to go to a bigger city that's gonna be more easily accessible. You know what I'm saying? And don't get me wrong. I mean, I think that point in terms of the economy is definitely down. No two ways about it. But guess what? when 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 Jackson State come to AW, they're gonna bring a crowd. When Southern travel well, they're gonna bring a crowd. Certain SWAC schools gonna bring a crowd. I mean, even when FAMU came to AW, they brought more people than I anticipated. They brought a little crowd. You know what I'm saying? Who else? Alabama and them been traveling better lately. So at the end of the day, you want a team. I mean, even just think about it. PV won the SWAC championship, and Tremaine Jackson was complaining that hey, they won the SWAC championship, but their fan base really wasn't supporting as much as he wanted them. I mean, I hate to say it, at certain points he couldn't give away tickets. Like literally, he was willing to give away tickets in terms of him buying the tickets himself so he could get people in the stands, and they really wasn't, supporting. So even though, I don't like how some of the Jackson State fans pretty much dismissing that PV even won the SWAC championship. That's one thing we really could say, but Jackson State over PV, hey, they're gonna come out and they're gonna support their football team, you know what I'm saying? And I think that's one of the things that people saying that eventually that's gonna end up leading to Tremaine Jackson leaving PV because, he's an excellent coach, he talk a good talk,
Walk the walk.
he walking the walk, he raising the money, like he doing everything he could, but you still not getting the fan base to support. So, one thing, if you're gonna have a prominent football program, you got to have the fans that come out and support it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, man. And let me knock out these comments. I got them stacked here. Israel says Chicago Football Classic isn't doing the numbers it was before COVID. Yeah. Same thing with Detroit. Gotta get much better teams in those classes, which we just discussed. Yes, sir. You're
So
100%
I
right.
you at this point. Obviously, maybe Miami then.
Right. Your boy Jay said having classics in Indy, you can only call about 3 to 4 schools that will actually have a good attendance for it, which is sad. Yeah, it is. Keeping up, fam said, I'm not shocked. It's economics, but the question is, what can be added? The attractions that will add value to the classic to give it a boost in attendance and viewership. What about foresight forward? Okay. So basically, just add some more. You can draw the people, like Dion did at Jackson. You know what I mean? His name alone was the attraction. So yeah, the HBCUs may have to get a little creative. Israel said that Indy Classic died after we lost to Kentucky State. Yeah, I remember that 2019, 25-33. Yeah, that was crazy. He said consumed body erased that year, 2019 from my brain. Yeah, that was a rough year for y'all. Your boy Jay said I remember Southern playing it back in the early 2000s. BET used to broadcast it. Yeah, BET need to do it again, man. Bring that back.
Realize it's still called BET, but it's no longer black owned. Bob Johnson.
Yeah, Bob Johnson. Yeah, that's right.
And so guess what? So
He
when
sold it.
you got white people that's really, it's still BET, but it's really not black entertainment. They really don't know how to brand it. They don't really know how to program. So I mean that was one of the things that really kind of was prominent on BET back in them days is, HBCU football. White owners really don't care about that at this point. So realistically, I think when it comes to HBCU football, BET, and that's I mean, that was some good old days. Like I said, me and Senior, watching Magic City Classic, Circle City Classic, whatever. But them days long gone, bro. I mean, if anything, I think, if you Circle City Class, you really need to get with HBCU Go, HBCU Game Day, whoever, one of these black platforms, or even maybe even an ESPN2 or whoever, and have them help push this venue. Like I say, if the Midwest really dying, then, have it on South Beach, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I think that would be a good location over there in South Beach. I like that, Coach. Brother Brent Fox, Fairview A&M Panther fan in the building. And he also a great content creator. Y'all make sure y'all support. He said, finally able to catch a live. Salute, brother. I appreciate you able to come catch us, man. Keeping it up, fam said, thinking ideas such as the last 1,000 tickets sold winning prize or a fancy dinner with the state, etc. In short, give them a reason to want to attend. They will show up knowing they will get something. Okay. Israel said, but then enters Coach Deion Sanders. Maybe we needed that Kentucky State loss, never going back to the way of that being there. Yeah. Deion put a battery pack on y'all, man, and y'all ain't never came down ever since. Well, I'm glad to see it.
We talk about this too on the channel too. I don't think it's just Deion. I think having the right AD.
Yeah, that too.
In terms of Robinson, in terms of JSU, you know what I'm saying? Because just think about it. Deion had him at a certain point. I bring this up all the time. I don't like the way he left. I think he could have left without, dragging JSU through the mud before he went to Boulder. You know what I'm saying? But he had the program in a certain place. TC Taylor, elevated it and took it to the next level. Whereas on the flip side, you got Willie Simmons and FAMU, and James Cools, he didn't do as well as TC Taylor did. So at the end of the day, I think that next successor and that right AD, of course, FAMU definitely had issues with their AD, whereas Jackson State got one of the better ADs in all the HBCU football, or HBCU in general, in terms of HBCU sports. So at the end of the day, I think those two dynamics really help JSU and, kind of got them going in the right direction for a while now, and they really had back since. But I'm not gonna lie, but you still got that Tremaine Jackson hump they need to get over. I know some people was like, well, hey, had Jacoby Morgan now got hurt, they beat PV, but I mean, if it was a fifth though, so at the end of the day, these definitely good conversations to be had,
Facts. Your boy Jay said, for the next 3 years, I doubt any classic games within a 200-mile radius will draw anything due to the economy. Yep. Popular singers are canceling concerts because of it. Yeah, man, it's rough out here. Yeah, that's so. Yeah, a lot of it has to do with just, people ain't got the money to like they did post not only the Orange Carrot being in office, not to go into politics, but just the economy just being bad way before then. And then just people ain't just got the money. You know what I mean? Yeah.
I mean, I feel what you're saying, but guess what? When it comes to certain events, I don't care what the economy look like. These certain events still boom, though. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So what I'm talking about, we know the faithful's gonna be there. You know what I mean? I'm just talking about in addition to the people that, they money look funny. You know what I mean?
I mean, that's definitely that's valid. That's definitely one of the more interesting components to having a successful event. But at the same token, as bad as the economy was, guess what? The event like the Super Bowl is just as big as it ever been. So
you know what, Coach? You got me there, because people will spend money. They know rent due next week, but if they want to go to that Beyonce concert or Chris Brown, that's not gonna stop them. So yeah, you got me there.
Hey, I saw literally 4 content creators earlier today talk about, this one guy, he was a coach, got a little pop on the team. The mama don't have the $300 for the kid team fee, but she took that money to go to Breezy Bowl or whatever they called it. And then this other couple got evicted because his girlfriend took the money and went to the Chris Brown concert. So at the end of the day, man, people, like you say, they taking their money, going to Chris Brown and Beyonce concerts. Man, at the end of the day, guess what? Bump that. Hey, if I'm living paycheck to paycheck and I know my rent due, man, I ain't going to no Beyonce or Chris Brown concert. I'm going to take care of my business first,
Right, facts. And I'm not ignoring your comments, keep it up. I'm trying to get to everybody, but you making some good points. Jay Barr said, salute family in chat, man. Appreciate you coming by. Appreciate you. That man was on X begging his fan base to buy tickets. Like, yeah, that was, I remember that. We talked about that. And, well, mainly you talked about it, Coach. Coach Jackson was on X heated, man.
Oh, I mean, that's what I'm saying. I'm gonna keep it real, We didn't talk about this in the HBCU space. Jay Good and I talked about this behind the scenes. I think that's gonna be one of the reasons let's keep it a buck. The same way people already saying in Jaguar Nation that Coach Falk gonna be on the bluff for a good time, not a long time. Tremaine Jackson definitely got one foot out of PV. And the fact that he's not getting the fan support from their football team is one of the reasons why he's going to eventually end up leaving, in my personal opinion.
Okay. What up, Adrian Crook? He said, I'm back and have pipe bus flooded out some Okay, hey, man, handle your business, brother. Keeping up, fam, say Eric went into financial red for 5 years by borrowing money worth $100 million and turned WCW into a $1 billion company. Tony Khan did the same and turned AEW into a $1 billion company. Oh, you talking about Eric Bigshaw?
Man,
that's what he meant.
Tony Khan daddy is a billionaire.
Right.
If anything, guess what? I'll be willing to bet dollars to donuts that Tony Khan done blew way more money than Dixie Carter ever blew on TNA. And for our wrestling fans, just let y'all know so we don't misunderstanding. First, for my HBCU fans, I'm gonna be on my brother T Wells on SWAC Talk tomorrow at 2 p.m. But tomorrow morning,
that's what's up.
But tomorrow morning here at about 10 p.m. we're gonna have a Black professional wrestling another episode in terms of Black wrestlers not being booked properly here tomorrow on the Southern Baller Show, and then of course I'm gonna also do a live stream tomorrow also. So I'm gonna be busy tomorrow, but definitely tomorrow for my wrestling fans we gonna talk about AEW and TNA and WWE not booking Black wrestlers the proper way. You know what I'm saying?
Okay. EA said will consider TC and the AD great good was Willie not had Willie not left FAMU.
Say that again, bro.
He said will consider TC and the AD great or good had Willie not left FAMU.
Well, like I said, yeah, that's one of the conversations we always have. I honestly, I don't think you was tuned in when I said this earlier. Honestly, had Willie Simmons not left, well, first of all, I think your boy Jay or Adrian Cook or somebody said it in the chat. They said that was part of the reason why Willie Simmons left was the fact that he knew early that FAMU was starting to have APR issues. But I said this off the flap. Jeremy Musa and Willie Simmons, they got FAMU to the Celebration Bowl that year, and I really believe had Willie Simmons not left FAMU, I don't think J State would have took over the way they did. And I think once he left and he went to Duke, that kind of opened the floodgates for Jackson State. You know what I'm saying? And like I said, we always have these, especially Jay Good and I behind the scenes, we always have these hypothetical conversations that had Willie Simmons not left, would J State became the power and the SWAC that they became, one, and then two, in terms of PV, had Jacoby and Morgan not got hurt, would Jackson State have won instead of purview. But at the end of the day, if was the fifth, you know what I'm saying?
Okay, Keeping Up Fam said North Dakota State. Hold on. He said TC no, AD Ashley Robinson yes. Why? Because he did what nobody believed and he would do, which is hire Deion. No one believed that he would show up, but when he did put the entire FCS, including North Dakota State, in panic mode, PWI FCS schools were rushing to add back opponents from their 2019 schedule just to avoid playing Jackson State. Within 2 years, North Dakota State added back North Carolina A&T with the quickness, and they were scared to death and didn't have no parts of Deion at JSU until they knew he was leaving for Colorado. Then they came up with that home and home nonsense. They weren't really okay. Your boy Jay said, I appreciate Willie Simmons because he got Dooley up out of here after Dooley blew that game versus FAMU in 2023.
Oh no, it pissed me off to this day. I'm like, why are you running the ball up the middle? Oh, it was in drop 8. Like, nigga, I'm a football coach. You ain't gonna sell me no bull crap like that. Come on, bro.
EA said 100, coach. He agreed with you. And Keeping Up Fans are serious of nonsense they were really serious about. They refused to some of the vet first, so they weren't with an easier opponent in Tennessee State. Both me and Coach Simmons called them out on X, and that's how that whole season called. Well, speaking of North Dakota, I hear you Keeping It Fan, but they can't. Let's see if they as dominant now since they moved to the Mountain West, so they FBS now. So a lot of their schedule is going to be a lot of FBS schools, maybe some of the weaker schools, but it's still FBS.
Man, they've been. I don't care. I mean,
they conference bullies, man. They were conference bullies.
I understand what Keeping
Up. They should have been moved up.
I say the same thing. They should have been FBS the whole damn time. Really, there was the whole damn time was a de facto FBS school. You know what I'm saying? I mean, essentially that'll be like the equivalent to Alexander Usyk, fighting at light heavyweight. Come on, bro. I mean, he'll have such a competitive advantage. It'll be unreal. You know what I'm saying?
Facts. Your EA said your boy Jay remember when they were only rushing 3 in the last seconds.
Say that again.
He was EA was responding to your boy Jay.
Oh, all right. but this is crazy thing about that game. He kept Dooley said that the reason why when he was at the 50-yard line they ran the ball up the middle with Kendrick Grimes because they was in drop 8. I'm like, no, nigga, it was clearly rushing 4 guys. I mean, he might have thought. I mean, if you're gonna tell me a lie, it got to be a believable lie. If you'd have said, hey, I thought we could have ran a draw, snuck a drawing on him, and got good yardage, cool. But for you to lie to my face and tell me, oh, they didn't drop 8, come on, bro. Like, and Perry White, he brought it up, but a bunch of people said it like, bro, they was not in drop 8. I sit on the 50-yard line in section 8E. Come on, bro. You're not gonna send me that lie. You know what I'm saying?
Adrian Cook said he ran that play because he thought that previous blown dead run would have been a home run.
But at least Crook came up with a realistic reason. Like, yeah, guess what? Maybe we could have got that off. And that's what I'm saying. If you'd have said that, maybe I thought I could sneak a drawing in on him, and we could have took it to the house. Cool. But you ain't gonna turn around and run that and time ticking, and you got limited amount of time, limited amount of timeouts, and you trying to play catch up at the end of the game. Come on, man, that was a stupid call. And instead of you just saying, hey, I thought we could sneak that drawing in and get a home run out of it, cool. But for you to tell me this cockamamie lie, oh, it was in drop 8, man, shut up, bro.
Right.
I mean, the fact that you got Chandler Whitfield, who was a junior at the time, saying, hey, guess what? We was up by 3. Jeremy Musa and their offense struggling. For the first time all season, Harold Blood and our offense had it going. and I'm off the punt, and I give the ball back to Jeremy Moose and them. They go down the field and they score a touchdown, and they go up going in the half. For him to have that kind of accountability as a player, a 20-year-old player, and you're a grown-ass man trying to lie your way out of a bad situation. But it just showed the accountability that Chandler Whitfield had as a player and the lack of accountability that Eric Dooley had. And, even one of the former Southern players that teach at my school right now, he was saying, man, that was one of the issues he always had in terms of our lack of accountability, you know what I'm saying? And he didn't like the pushback.
And he said, I hated that play when Pete Randy used to run it every first down. And then he said, man should have said they dropped 8 the play before. I'm like, he didn't. And Keeping Up Fam said North Dakota State should have been in the FBS, but they wanted no parts of Deion at Jackson State. They didn't want to risk losing to Deion at the vet, so they waited until he left before the offer came. They knew they weren't. You know what? That's probably why he, when he got to Colorado and the season, Shador's final season, he picked North Dakota State as their first game of the year as their measuring stick. So there may be something to that. Keeping it, fam. Your boy Jay said Dooley had me laughing, man. He really thought we were stupid. Yeah, just admit you were wrong, dog. Keeping it, fam, say going to beat Jackson State in 2024 with Deion. They had no shot. Tim Brewster showed me the same players he recruited for Colorado who would have been at Jackson State. One of them was Jimmy Horn Jr. Okay. I think Dooley was drunk. Oh, snap. But Coach, man, that's pretty much all I wanted to talk about tonight, man. We can go ahead and start wrapping it up, man. You got any lasting words or anything you want to add before we get out of here?
Well, first and foremost, we appreciate everybody that came through, that rock with HBCU Fanatics. We definitely trying our best to grow, first and foremost, Jared011Green channel, and we definitely trying to grow the HBCU Fanatics brand, to give y'all some stuff that my brother Jared and I have playing behind the scenes that we've been talking about at some of these different events we talking about on. So, stay tuned, online we're going to try to, upgrade the quality of our content. And not only that, but like I said earlier, for all our wrestling fans tomorrow at 10 a.m. here on this channel, we're going to talk about, this series that we have been talking about in terms of, black wrestlers being booked poorly in professional wrestling and WWE, TNA, AEW, whatever. We're going to talk about that tomorrow morning. At least that's the plan for right now, if the law stays the same. And then I plan on being on my brother Sewell SWAC Talk tomorrow morning at 2 p.m. And I'm also going to do a live stream tomorrow. So, y'all tap in and y'all rock with us. And salute to the awesome and amazing LDBC. And we appreciate everybody that's been supporting the channel. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, sir. So, y'all heard the brother Coach, man. We trying to grow this channel. Make sure y'all hit the like button, share, subscribe. But I appreciate everyone that came in here just to listen to us, what we had to say. I appreciate every one of y'all. But this was another installment of HBCU Fanatics. Y'all have a blessed weekend. Catch y'all later.